Hey everyone, it's Sam coming to you on day 90 of my solid food vacation cold pressed juice feast. Feeling great. It's July 12th and we are just entering the thick of watermelon and cantaloupe melon season, and really a lot of good produce starting to come around in the local farmers markets. You know, it's hot out. I can buy produce in bulk, in season stuff, and so that was really a lot of what kept me going, was looking forward to this moment. And I made my first visit to the farmers market yesterday, where I was actually able to just look and see that everything was in season and in abundance, whereas when I had gone in weeks past, things weren't quite ramped up to that point yet. So that felt really great. I'll talk a little bit about buying produce from farmers markets and how that can really save you money on the juice feast, and also why it's better to do that vis-a-vis organic or conventional or even organic produce. But it's day 90. I'm kind of on the home stretch here. Feeling great. I haven't made a video since day 80, and I had a big obstacle since I made my last video that I want to talk about real quick as a sort of word of caution to others who might be doing this juice feast. Is that I think it was on day like 83 or 84, July 3rd, I guess I was 81, my juicer broke. My Omega 806 that I bought 7 years ago. It's under a 15-year warranty, but I had been using it a lot, especially in the last year. Maybe a month or several weeks ago, it had started to make some grinding noises, some chopping noises. Wasn't really sure what was going on, and about 9 days ago, it just when I would turn it on and put produce in, the auger would just stop. And when that first happened, and I could kind of see that it was starting to have some serious wear, and that this was a risk. But when my juicer broke the morning I was making my juices on July 3rd, I panicked. I was really worried, because I'm 80 something days into this juice feast. I can't just pop out of it. I'd have to ease out of it. What does one do in that instance? Well, luckily, back in May, I realized that this might be a possibility. I think I dropped a part, maybe the screen of my juicer, and I thought, man, what if that thing shattered? It's the quarantine, stores aren't really open. I could maybe buy like a cheap Breville centrifugal juicer, or in my city today if I needed, but then I'd have to buy a cheap one, maybe buy a part for my new one, or wait for it to be serviced. And that would end up costing me a lot of money. It would be a big obstacle. So one thing I did back in May was, when I realized it might be a possibility that my juicer could break, and I recommend this to folks who are thinking of doing a long-term juice feast, is get yourself a backup juicer. And I would recommend like a smaller one that you can maybe use as a sort of travel juicer, or something that's a little bit more, not so much your workhorse, but a little bit, something more practical. I went with the TriBest Shine juicer because it was on sale. I got it for about $100 refurbished. It comes with a 3-year warranty, and it's a little bit smaller. It takes up a smaller footprint on my countertop, but I like it because it's really marketed as like a travel juicer. So if I'm going on like little weekends or holidays, going outside the city, I can take that with me, and it's really not too heavy to pack, but it's still a centrifugal, no, not a centrifugal, sorry, it's a slow masticating cold press juicer, even though it's smaller and on the cheaper side, which is really awesome. It's an awesome product. So I bought that. I think it was like a Mother's Day sale back in May, when I realized that during this quarantine, if my main juicer, my workhorse Omega 8006, were to break, I would be SOL. So I'd used it a couple times, and the reason I kind of panicked when the 8006 broke is because I wasn't that well versed with the TriBest Shine yet. I hadn't used it too often. It is a little smaller, so it takes longer to juice, or it can't really juice in such a high quantity as the Omega 8006 because it overheats quicker. It can only really juice for 10 minutes at a time, and then also because it's a vertical stand-up juicer, it doesn't juice things like greens as well. So I had to kind of really change up my routine on the fly, and maybe my panic wasn't warranted, but I had become so established in my routine with my Omega 8006 that it kind of shocked me a little bit. But luckily, because I had that backup juicer, I turned out to be okay. And while I was working to get the Omega company on the phone to get my Omega 8006 juicer serviced, eventually I shipped it back to them, several days afterwards, and they're working on it now. I was able to use to get into the habit of using the TriBest Shine. One thing with those vertical juicers, at least that one, you really have to you have to dice your produce up as opposed to just chopping it long-wise. I didn't really know that at first. During that time, I didn't do so much green juices because, the Shine doesn't do green juices so well. It can do them, but you have to, chop up your parsley, your cilantro, your kale. You have to dice it up, and that can be a lot of work. So, during that time, I just did a lot of grapes, apples, carrots, things like that, some baby spinach, ginger, lemons, and cantaloupes too, watermelon. It does all those things fine. It does root vegetables really well. And in fact, one thing I learned, when I was traveling on my little one-day weekend trips, and I did do a one-day weekend trip the day after on July 4th. Luckily, was able to juice a lot and prep for that, and still do that. I did me and my fiance and I, we took a trip to a national park near us and visited some waterfalls, which was really nice. And if you are juice fasting and you are traveling, or you need to bring a lot of juice with you, or you need to bring you need to pack juice with you, you're going to want a higher calorie juice. And one I've found that I've recommended is a sweet potato and apple juice. Again, sweet potato, apple. You might not think sweet potato when it comes to juicing, but it does. It juices really well. It's kind of a little bit like carrot juice, but maybe a little less sweet, but more smooth. It kind of juices in the same way. If you dice it up through a vertical juicer or a horizontal juicer, of course, it juices really well. And it really gives you the most calories of any juice you can that I've been able to find. At least, most calories are something I can juice, pretty easily. So, I juiced a lot of that and was able to still salvage my July 4th trip to the Shenandoah National Park, which was really great. And another great thing that happened is, and for folks, if your juicer breaks or if you're on a long juice fast, of course, I would recommend looking into a backup juicer, especially now during the quarantine period. Unless, of course, you have a store you can go to and you can just get your juicer fixed. Maybe they sold it to you there and they offer warranties and parts. But with mine, I ordered a part from Amazon. I thought maybe the drum, the clear case of my juicer had worn out a little bit, and I ordered that part. It came and it didn't fix the problem, so I really had to ship the whole thing over back to Omega to have them fix it. Luckily, it's a good company. It was the July 4th weekend, so it was tough to get in touch with them at first, but eventually they paid for the shipping for me to send the sucker back to them so they can take a look at it. But especially now because we're in quarantine time, or just also because it seems like people buy a lot of their appliances and their home goods online anyway. It might make sense for you to get a backup juicer if you're living off these juices every day, because it can be pretty scary if you face the prospect of going a half day or a whole day without your juices. Another thing I learned during this time was, I do live near a Whole Foods, and I think I went to the Whole Foods the next day to buy some produce, and I noticed that they have opened their fresh juice station, but also they cold press orange juice all the time in house there. So I think I bought, just because I was tired of juicing and I wasn't quite adjusted to the smaller one. the smaller juicer, I bought some like a gallon or two of cold pressed orange juice that they had made that morning, and that kind of helped me weather the transition to the new juicer. But another thing I suggest, especially if you live in a big city, is check out your classifieds. Go on to Craigslist. I didn't do this right away, but several days after I did, and a woman was selling an Omega 8006, looked just like the juicer I had that had minimal use because she was trying to downsize, and she was selling it for like 50, 60, 70 bucks. You know, I bought mine brand new with warranty for like $250 to $270. So I almost bought that one, but then I kept looking, and the next day, a Tribest Greenstar Elite, the sort of best juicer on the market, a guy was moving out, and he had a juicer, I think that's on like a 12-year warranty. He bought his like 8 years ago, and he was downsizing. That juicer's like 500 bucks, 550 bucks. He was selling his for $200. So I acted fast and picked that one up for $200. So now I've got the Tribest Greenstar Elite and the Tribest Shine at my disposal. And of course the Omega is getting fixed. I'm not sure when they'll send it back to me. Also, I'm not sure if the Tribest Greenstar Elite that's new to me that I just bought, I don't know if it's necessarily under warranty still because it's been resold to me. So I'll probably hold on to the Omega still. For one thing, the Tribest Greenstar Elite is like the A+ of juicers, but the Omega 8006, that's a solid A. As far as grades, I would give these juicers. I mean, the 8006, it's easy to clean, very slow masticating, produces good juice. The Greenstar Elite, twin auger, the juice comes out a little bit sweeter. I think it gives you a little bit better yield, the 8006. Excuse me, caught a bug in my throat. And a little higher yield, a little bit better quality juice because it's got dual gears. Still, it takes a little bit longer to clean, but I found that to be not that big of an issue. It's just a bigger juicer. It's more hulking, which I think could maybe keep some people from wanting to use it so often. But if you're as locked into juicing as I am at this point, it doesn't really deter me. So I've got it. I like it, and yeah, I got really lucky that those juicers happened to be on sale. Or rather, I was really fortunate that those juicers were being resold in my area, and I was able to pick them up and get them at such a good price. So definitely be aware of the classifieds when you're looking for a juicer, because a lot of times people have these big juicers that they just don't use that much anymore. Although I'm not sure if the companies still honor the warranties on the resold juicers. I don't know about that, but yeah, you can't have too many juicers, I guess, especially if you can store them all. Just drinking some fresh watermelon juice. And another thing I want to talk about was, the farmers markets near me are, in full abundance right now, which is really great. I mean, I've really been looking forward to this, especially since this time last year when I first got into juicing. I know a lot of people are starting Juice Feast right now because, you can really get a lot of that fresh produce right now. And people ask me, how much does juicing cost? It seems really expensive. Do you juice all your stuff organically or what? And I say, yeah, I try to buy all my stuff organically as opposed to conventionally. It's really not that much more expensive. I fortunately live near Whole Foods, and I can bike there every other day or so. Or at least that's what I was doing before produce became in season. But beyond that, I buy my produce from farmers markets instead of buying organic in the supermarket when I can, for a few reasons. For one, a lot of the farmers, the way they grow their produce is earnest, and they do it in a clean way and in a sustainable way, but they just don't bother to get the the label or they don't go through the bureaucratic paperwork of getting the stamp of organic, because that's It's expensive and it's hard to come by. It's a process that can take several years, and a lot of these smaller farmers just don't have the resources to do that. But more so when you're going to the farmer's market and you're shopping in season, which is July through September, October, pretty much for most things. I mean, some things like asparagus and strawberries even come in sooner than that, like April, May, or June. But that produce has been picked, that week. It's fresh, and for that reason, it's sweeter. And when the produce, especially you can tell this when juiced, it tastes better. That's because it's got more nutrition in it. Produce from farmers markets, I know a lot of you know this, I don't need to say it, but I will anyway. The fact that they are picked more recently means they have more higher quantity of sunlight energy in them. They haven't started to decompose. They haven't, the biophotons, which is a measure of sunlight energy, the measurement hasn't gone down. So really now's the time to do it, and now's the time to go on a juice feast. And for me, with farmers markets, and for folks that are worried about the cost of this, what I've done at my farmers markets that's worked quite well is when the produce starts coming in season, I go to the farmer at the farmers market, and I let them know that hey, I'm juicing a lot of this produce, so I want to buy a lot of produce from you, and I want to bring it home and juice it. And I tell them that because if you let them know you're wanting to juice produce, a lot of times the farmers will have produce on their hands that they can't sell because it's too ripe, it's starting to get mushy, or they have produce that they can't sell because it's a little bit bruised, maybe it's fallen off the table or fallen out of the crate, and people don't want to buy that produce because it doesn't really look as nice, or it's got a bruise on it. A lot of times the farmers will give you that produce or give it to you at a much more discounted rate. And if you tell them you want to buy in bulk, which I've started to do, what you do is you kind of go to the farmer maybe at the beginning of the day, or at the beginning of the season, and say, hey, introduce yourself, and say, hey, I want to buy a bulk from you. And then what they'll say is come to my stand at the end of the day, at the end of my farmers market session when it starts to close, and I'll set aside like a big crate of melons and stuff so you can buy them in bulk, and they'll also put that produce in there that you can juice that other people might not want because it's overripe, or it's got a bruise on it or something. And you can buy you can juice for a whole week for probably, I haven't really measured that out, but like $75, $100, maybe $50, I mean, depending on what you're juicing. Watermelons get a big yield, and cantaloupes too. I'm a big more of a fan of cantaloupes than watermelon, but I still juice the watermelon because it's very, very good for you, very cleansing, full of glutathione, and also the price is right. I mean, you can get like 1.5 gallons, so almost 2 gallons of juice for like $7-8 for one big watermelon. And when it's in season, you really can't go wrong. So I've been juicing a lot of watermelon and cantaloupe right now, because it's in season, a little bit more so than the greens, because I can get that stuff from my farmer's market, and I can get some greens from the farmer too. But for my green juice, where I'm putting celery and cilantro and habanero and green apples aren't really in season yet. I can't buy all that stuff from the farmer's market, so I'm still juicing that stuff a little bit, but doing a lot more cantaloupes and watermelon right now too, especially because I'm on day 90 of my juice feast. I've cleaned out a lot of the toxins from my body already, so it's really not an issue for me to do predominantly fruits as opposed to more of a higher split of fruits and vegetables, because the vast majority of toxins have been cleansed from my body, or rather I'm not really in a very polluted body right now. So if I'm to drink a lot of fruit, my bloodstream isn't going to be slammed with toxins trying to get out of my cells, the way one would experience if they were very sick and just starting to go on a juice feast. John Rose or someone, or Dr. Morse would say that you want to start with a higher vegetable percentage in your juices, because fruits are so cleansing that if you go to them right off the bat and you're in a very toxic, very polluted body, you'll experience a lot of detox symptoms. But that's when coffee enemas can be good as well. So, luckily I was never so polluted that I had too many detox symptoms. But when I first started to juice, I had a little bit of issues in that I noticed lymph would collect in my lymph nodes under my armpits, and I would get these little lumps that they were just uncomfortable. They were worrying a little bit. I didn't really know what it was right away. But then I kind of realized that this was like a year ago, last summer, when I first started juicing a lot. I realized they were buildups of lymph, and I started to, I would start my day with some lemon water, with lemon squeezed in some warm water, and that got rid of that. I have a hunch that a coffee enema would have gotten rid of that a lot as well too, but I'm pretty sure that was just a collection of lymph from toxins trying to get out of my system quickly, but bottlenecking and not being able to escape my blood system as quickly, or rather my lymph system as quickly. So that was the only thing I've really had in terms of detox symptoms. I don't really have too much of that anymore, and for that reason I can really do a high percentage of fruits in my diet, which I want to do right now because now is the melon season, and I can just do that cheap, and the juice is super sweet, and it's now's the time to be juicing, especially also because it's just so hot out. I remember my earlier videos like April, May, hadn't spring, summer hadn't really kicked into gear yet, and I was cold all the time, and it wasn't very fun. Wasn't even warm enough to really go outside and get a lot of sun. So now's the time to be juicing, and I've been looking forward to this, and even though it's like peak time for juicing, my juice fast, at least I think, is probably going to be coming to an end within the next, I would say, 1 to 2.5 weeks. Folks know that due to my calendar, or I could really only set aside 105 or 110 days for this juice feast, because I'm doing some traveling next month, and I think that's, at least for my body, that's as much as I really want to do. Or hopefully I'll completely be done within that time period. And I'll talk a little bit about how I'm eliminating and what I think that might mean. But, I think given my general state of health, I don't need to do anything that's so, much longer than that. But, the rate of my eliminations, still about 1 a day. Some days it's not quite 1, or it's not quite a full solid elimination, and some days it's a large elimination or something like that. But the rate at which I've been eliminating has gone down since, I would say day 75 or 80, and I'm hoping, although I can't be sure, that means that I'm at least reaching the finish line of moving out all the old matter from my small and large intestines, and that's something I think about a lot. I can't be sure of, but I hope that's the case. But I'm gonna have to break the juice feast by day 105, 107, or 8, regardless, just because of my traveling that I've got planned for August. And I also want to give myself like a week or week and a half or 2 week buffer between when I break the juice feast and when I start to go traveling, because once I'm traveling, some of those variables about what kind of fruit and vegetables and produce I can get will be a little bit more outside of my control. So I don't want to risk poor dietary decisions right after my juice feast. And I would recommend, of course, for everyone really to slowly or gradually come out of the juice feast. Give yourself at least a week to break it, and another couple weeks to eat properly after that, to rebuild your system. And of course, everyone knows, and John Rose has videos about this, when I break my feast, I'll go on the prune test, and then I'll take at least the rest of that week to slowly break the juice feast, starting with 1 fruit meal on day 2 or 3 of breaking the feast, and then moving that to 2 fruit meals, and of course augmenting that with juices. Yeah, I hope that the frequency with which I'm eliminating, the fact that that's going down, is indicative of me being closer to cleanliness. Also, you can see in my torso, I mean, I've gotten quite lean, pretty thin. My weight is about 128, 129, 130. It's held very steady right there. So I'm hoping that means I don't have a lot left in me, but I can't be sure. And yeah, that's something I think about a lot, because it would be, I'm not gonna lie, if it would be disappointing if I did this whole juice feast day, 100 plus days, and a big thing I worry about is that I would just still be pooping at a consistent rate, and I'd have to break it at that rate and not really know how close I came and going the distance. Now, I know that a lot of people deal with this, and cleansing is a process, and it won't be the end for me either way, but I did this wanting to know what it felt like to go the distance. I want to know what it feels like to eat a fruit mono meal and feel that go through me, and then see that eliminated naturally, or I can even recognize the fruit. I want to see how good I can feel with all the stuff out of my body, but ultimately, I think I'm close enough there that whatever happens, I'll eventually get there, or I might even get there in that week or 2 after breaking the fast, or when I'm breaking the fast, and then the week or so after, when I'm, maybe the prunes themselves will get those stubborn old matter out of me, if the juices don't themselves. But that's just something I'll find out as I go. So I'm eager to see that, and I really can't believe how far I've come. I mean, day 90, I thought I might even be done by now. I'm not. I had a big movement this morning, but I'm proud of how far I've come, and I know I've accomplished a lot either way. And I can't believe it's been 90 days. I mean, to think that I started this in the middle of spring, and now it's practically the middle of summer. I mean, an entire season has passed, and I've been doing this. I mean, that's a long time. And like I've said, the psychological game of doing this for several months is the hardest part. It's much harder than the juicing every morning, or the not eating foods. I recall I got another question about, are you only having, cold pressed, unpasteurized juices on this juice feast, or have you ever had any bottled juices to kind of supplement or, augment your juicing when traveling and things like that? And the answer is no. I've not had any bottled juices on this juice feast, although I had some coffee here and there towards the beginning, and I had the iced coffee in June, or iced almond milk latte rather. And I would not recommend doing this juice feast on unpasteurized juices. I mean, I don't think you would. For one thing, you wouldn't get the healing enzymes or biophotons of cold-pressed raw juice from fresh organic produce. That pasteurized juice is dead, and in drinking it, you won't feel full and nourished, because you won't be getting everything from it: enzymes, minerals, nutrients. Your cravings won't go away for food. And that can be a tough pill to swallow when you're thinking about going on the juice feast, and people are always asking me, they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about going on this juice feast, but like, man, it's expensive, right? I mean, it's gonna be expensive, or I don't know how much juice do you drink. I don't know if I can make that much per day, or they want to know about certain juicers. And I'm telling you, before you started, the things that you're worried about before you started are not the things that turn out to be the hard part of the juice feast, and you won't know until you start. And once you do start, you'll find that the things that are hard are not what you thought they would be. You know, the things that are hard are the psychological aspect of it, or the, you know, wanting to plan your day or your social calendar around it, but not the eating, or not the making of the juices, or not even the cost, really. I don't. It's $5 a liter. It's pretty much consistently been the cost for me, and that's $20 to $30 a day. But that you're never spending any more than $30 a day, because you're not going out and drinking. You're not going out to restaurants where the costs can quickly add up. I mean, it's a hard stop at $30 a day usually. Sometimes less when fruit's in season, But I remember when I first started, I first saw John Rose's video, and I was like, man, I want to do a juice feast, but dang, that looks really hard to get up early and, you know, juice produce, having to go to the store all the time to buy, you know, big bags of produce, and having to buy mason jars and doing all that juicing. And by the way, you get really used to all that stuff really quickly, but when I had first considered doing this, I'd thought, I want to do a solid food vacation, but it didn't really click to me yet that I couldn't do it on processed juices. So I remember I went to the supermarket near me, and I was like looking at I went into the juice aisle that's not even refrigerated. I was looking at like bottles of V8 in the juice aisle, but that they were so pasteurized that they're not even in a refrigerated aisle. And I didn't buy anything. And I was looking at some fruit juices in there too, like Sunkist. It's like, oh, 100% juice. Yeah, I probably can drink that. You know, I didn't buy anything then. And then, of course, I think I later came to my senses, or I watched another John Rose video and realized, yeah, you got to do cold pressed, unpasteurized juices. Or else it's you're not going to cleanse the same way. But I remember. After the holidays, you know, I was not at home. I was at my in-laws' place between Christmas and New Year's, and I think between like the week before Christmas up until the day after Christmas, or Christmas Day, I had juiced a lot before then, and I was you know, almost raw vegan. But then that week before Christmas, you know, my dietary habits kind of got away from me, so I wanted to go back on the juices the day after Christmas. But you know, I was traveling, and juicing while traveling was not yet a reality for me. I mean, I didn't even know you could get like a travel juicer. I didn't have one, but I put on a little weight, and I just knew, because I had not been getting so much raw nutrients and enzymes. I was craving juices. I wanted to fast. So the day after Christmas, I, you know, went to a juice store, and in the place where I was staying, which was not in the city that I live, and I you know, bought a couple juices, but I knew that wasn't gonna last me the whole day. So I went to the supermarket and found something on the shelf that said cold pressed juice, you know, and it was in a refrigerated aisle, but, you know, cold pressed juice. I was like, oh, it's cold pressed, you know, that must be good. I think I bought like a couple gallons of it and started a juice feast that day. And of course, didn't realize that just because something that you see at the supermarket in a carton says cold pressed, it might have been cold pressed, but it was still pasteurized after it was cold pressed, you know, because they don't just put something on the shelf unpasteurized, because it'll go bad really quickly. Or when they do, it's always done in store, like some Whole Foods do. But at this store, which was also a Whole Foods, it was, you know, something that clearly wasn't made in store, and it said cold pressed. But at that point, I didn't know that cold pressed didn't mean raw, you know. It just meant that it was just a marketing ploy, really. So I bought a couple gallons of that, and I started my like 4 or 5 day juice feast that way, where I was like buying a few in-house made juices from a juice shop that were pretty expensive, and then doing the rest with this like cold pressed juice that I found in a carton at Whole Foods. And after a couple days of doing that, I got really sick. I got like a really bad flu. This was like December 27th or so. And then, you know, we took the bus back to my city, back to Washington D.C. the next day, like the 28th, and I got back on the cold pressed raw juices that I made at home, and eventually got better within a day or two. But yeah, man, when people ask me about doing unprocessed or doing pasteurized or processed juices, I tell them, look, don't do it. You're gonna get sick. You're not gonna cleanse. You're not gonna get even close to that spiritual feeling you get when you take in, and you know, these biophoton, nutrient, enzyme rich cold pressed raw juices. You know, I mean, you get that spiritual feeling because you just connect so well with the season and with nature, from drinking that stuff, and of course from fasting and getting the other crap out of your system. And doing cold pressed juices, or doing pasteurized juices, I mean, I guess you'd lose some weight just from your stomach not having to digest, but I mean, your body's gonna respond. And for me, it was getting sick, like, and you know, what, I don't know for sure that was connected to the pasteurized juices, but probably because I wasn't really consuming much of anything else. And I mean, yeah, even eating like unhealthy food during the holidays, I mean, I was still eating some fruit and some vegetables and stuff. So I mean, I wasn't getting sick from that, even if it was like making my stomach grow out. So yeah, I would not recommend going on a juice fast with pasteurized juices, and I wouldn't even recommend, if you can avoid it, to supplement with pasteurized juices like when you're traveling, because I get the suspicion that stuff will give you cravings for things that, you know, maybe, you know, your body will fight back in some way. You might get cravings for food, but also you might just get a really parched, dry feeling in your throat, from your body drinking something and then knowing that it's not as efficiently nourishing as cold pressed raw juices. I've also been trying to get into diaphragmatic breathing and breath work on this juice feast. It's just something that I've come across in videos of folks that are in some of these, you know, message boards and on the Facebook group, and it's something that's intrigued me. I listened to the audiobook Breathe by James Nestor, which is an interesting synthesis of a lot of sort of alternative health ideas like deep breathing exercises, but also oral posture, as those relate to chewing and masticating, and of course as that physical process relates to raw food. I think those things are all kind of connected: breathing through the nose, oral posture, chewing, raw foods, being outdoors, you know, versus living the pasteurized processed life of soft, you know, eating processed food that you don't chew that much, and then suddenly your sinuses will rupture because you know, you have a lot of, you know, allergies or something like that, and you're breathing through your mouth, and then your mouth droops open. But at any rate, before I get into any of that, if folks have any good leads or exercises, breathing for diaphragmatic breathing, I'd love to learn more about that, and I've been kind of trying to research some of it on my own, but it's a lot of different methods. So, you know, if folks are into that, I'd love to connect. And yeah, I'll try to do it up close of my physique here. You know, it's day 90. Folks might want to know what day 90 looks like for someone on a cold pressed juice feast. I think I've been able to hold on to a fair bit of muscle in my arms and some in my chest. I'm still working out, doing body weight workouts 3 times a week, and I've done so this whole this whole juice feast. Sometimes those aren't so intense, but they're all, you know, you saw pretty much in, I think, day 48, I show what I do, and that's pretty much been what I've done 3 times a week. So I think that's good for moving the lymph and for keeping my muscles, you know, activated. Give you more of an up close on the anatomy. Really wondering how much more waste matter could be in those and be in there, but yeah. So I'm on the home stretch here, and thanks for watching all my videos, and this is a long video. Thanks for staying with me on this journey. I'll post a few more videos going forward, you know, and definitely gonna try to increase the frequency of videos I post as I break this juice feast within the next month or so. I've got some conversations lined up with Alonzo Armillo and Nathan Von Dutch that I'm gonna do on this channel. And just connect with me. You know, the season for juice fasting and produce is now. It's just starting, so it's really a great time to be doing this. And love to hear from folks. So, you know, don't be shy to comment below, and I'll catch you in the next video.